Hey guys. Look how my pants look like, just like my skin. Do you want to know why my pants are so tight? Is because I'm missing my underwear, so I'm wearing my long underwear underneath. Yeah, I look like I'm...
Wait, you didn't bring enough underwear?
No.
So should we all sit on the floor?
Alright. What the fuck did I get myself into?
I'm healing a little bit, right?
Please
I need Joey to
save me. Guys, if you're listening to this, please save me. I'm trapped in a cold.
Hey
Is
guys.
it recording?
Yeah, I hope so.
Do you see record there? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do. All right, we have some questions that we need answered. Some people submitted their questions, and we're gonna try to answer them.
Now I'm magically here. I'm a paid extra to make this not look like Summer and Saunders project. I actually responded to a casting advertisement. I'm here to play the dumb guy in the video who asks all the questions, who doesn't know what he's doing to learn, so the viewer learns along the way with him. That's my role.
We really needed somebody like that.
Where are you going?
I'm
You going to work?
Wrong department. I don't know.
Smith Woods.
Oh right, Smith.
Woods. We're gonna go.
All I knew is that the dress code was earth tone today.
Earth tones.
We've already staged the scene. My stunt double is already there. I'm wearing a hat and glasses, so you can't tell whether it's actually me working or not. So then once this is out like this, you don't think it can grow back, or it could regenerate even from a small root?
Well, I kind of separated these questions into groupings. So we basically have like an overview, and then we have some questions on like relationships and interrelationships.
Wait, what?
Even as a hired extra, gardening, structures, animals, things like that. So anyway, I'm going to try to keep this going along. So the first question is from ATN Richard, and he actually submitted a bunch of them too. So I kind of separated them as based on how they are. But he asks, how are you going to share the land? So we kind of structured it. You know, we kind of discussed that we'd go in on a larger piece of land, right? And then we talked to our lawyer, and she recommended that we basically cut it out in chunks, but not cut out the entire land, right? What did she say? Basically have a surveyor come in and give out 49 and 99-year leases, basically.
Right. Well, obviously the majority of the land will be shared use for all of us, and potentially even other people. But eventually the idea is to have a section of it dedicated to each individual, so that we can do there whatever we want, and then the rest is like kind of sharing between us.
Well, I think if you were to look at the plots of land around this area over history, they're shrinking. So way back when people were designated a huge swath of land, they're the ones who subdivided it and sold it into small strips. And when you look at properties around here, there's very few like huge land parcels left. So whether you go into that land parcel, a big one, with friends, or whether you just buy a strip of land, it's kind of the same thing, but you get to choose how you want to subdivide it. Do you want to subdivide it by government rules and sell it as a strip, or do you want to go in together and know that there could be some common spaces that you share and other areas that are designated like private for whatever future project you want to do? So for me, the bigger land, uninterrupted land, was more appealing. So that's why I'm part of this, and that's how I always saw dividing it between us.
Yeah, and
it's like you could have someone else choose for you where the line goes, or you could choose yourself where your own either imaginary or official line goes.
Exactly. And I think when we were looking at land, we were kind of trying to aim for like somewhere between like that 30 and 100 acres or so, and then we could, as Joey said, arrange it as we saw fit. But there were times where we couldn't even find that amount of acreage, and we're like, well, maybe if we like buy this one and kind of like put it all together, but it just wouldn't have made sense. But I think another thing that might be helpful to you all is in the Finger Lakes, there's a precedence for leasing out land and like 49 and 99-year lease agreements, and you could still actually get a mortgage on that land. So if we were to build our homes, which we hope to eventually do that, the bank could still give you a mortgage they would less likely give you a mortgage if you structured it like as just a communal land with no boundaries for individual homes. So
It becomes harder for a bank to estimate the value of that, because if there's other people involved,
yeah,
how's that gonna work?
yeah, and then it's hard
Can't
to
hold
like
the collateral. Or
yeah,
whatever
exactly. It's hard to like divvy up assets and things along those lines. So there is some complication there, and I would like recommend anybody looking into that in their own communities, because it actually may differ from community to community. But that's how we're kind of thinking about it, and we're having fun kind of looking at the structure of this land and what it allows for, and that's I'm sure we'll have more of that in the future. But moving on, a little woo-woo asks, are you going to sustain as a group with business and the land, or have you broken it into individual endeavors and you all just take care and use your own section? And I think that's kind of related to the last one, but we all work different professions, and I'm sure there's more business opportunities that are going to come out of this. But I think that we're all kind of planning to, again, kind of co-live, co-work, co-play communally, and run our own businesses, and maybe do something on here too as time allows. I don't know what you guys think about it.
Well, I think that the first areas that we're putting money into are to develop things that benefit the collective, right? So for example, we're not really pouring money into private things yet, because we don't have even we don't have any idea to build personal homes right now, right? So anything that we're investing in, whether it's a business opportunity or just improving the land, is for all of us right now. So the first project is a good example, the deer fence. You guys want to do some heavy planting, the deers are going to eat it. We have to keep the deers out. So before you can make any, YouTube video tutorial on how to do this, it's like that's something that's going to benefit all of us, whether I have a house here one day or whether you're just doing this as a business. It's like those are the first things that we have to do together. So I think we're not even in the phase of like, oh, what business can we run here? It's just like we inherited this very developed property that was developed for somebody else's use, but for us it's still kind of a raw blank canvas. So there's things that we have to do together first, and then we can think about business things.
Yeah, and I think it served its purpose, as a nursery, and there are some aspects of the land that are pretty, I would say, degraded to a certain degree. So as Joey had mentioned, like we really want to put our efforts into restoring that. As he shared, like we want to do some plantings and some enrichment planting and see some of our forest actually regenerate, but we can't do that without keeping the deer out, because they're like 10 times more deer pressure here than in many other areas. Do you have anything to add to that?
Not really.
Okay.
That's a pretty good answer.
Moving on to La France. Let's discuss long-term goals and what is planned for the future years from now. I wish I knew all what the future holds, but yeah.
But I think that's always up in the air, and there are plans that we have immediately that we feel really confident about, and we just move forward with those and then see how things develop from there, and then maybe something else might pop up. But
yeah, so some of our immediate plans, as we'd mentioned, is like getting deer fence, being able to do turning the nursery area that had been there into a meadow, and doing our lawn into meadow, and just doing, again, enrichment planting. And I think long-term goals, perhaps like our vision for this is to invite other creators and create a little community of folks. Maybe it's not going to be building like tons of homes. The land, I don't think can, really.
It's not right for the land.
It's not right for the land, yeah. Though it's a lot of acreage, there's only a small amount that's actually buildable, to be perfectly frank, because most of it's forest, and then a lot of the open area is actually water, and I don't think it would probably hold too many homes. But there's a lower area that we'd like to open up to the community in a way that we'll have to explore. So that's probably some of our long range plans, but we're kind of plotting out like 1 to 2 years in advance to try to, get the house up to snuff and renovate that, restore the land, things like that, and then we'll kind of like learn from there.
It really depends on what is needed and what the state of the world is as well, because even Terry with his greenhouse, he had a different idea when he got started, and then the world changed with the pandemic, and then he had to alter his idea. So it's always difficult to make plans right now for like 5 to 10 years in the future, but I think we have general abstract guidelines set that we that we want to follow, and then we just fill it in as we go with whatever we want to do.
Well, we basically started this project, this journey, before the pandemic hit, and we were closing on the property like wearing masks, like when it first started, when people are getting serious. And I think it was before that huge exodus of people from the big cities into the countryside. So in that way, we got so lucky, right? But it really has put a halt on a lot of the things that we wanted to develop, because we were expecting many contractors just to be available, things to just pop up and get built. But now, because everybody kind of has the same idea to escape the city centers, like all of those contractors are really busy. So it's been really hard to stay on any schedule. So that's kind of affected our plans a little bit. But for me personally, like I haven't been living in this country. So like I've been just seeing things from far away. So I'm here to actually figure out what is the answer to that question also that was asked, which is like, what do we do with this place now?
Yeah.
But, the world is a giant elastic, and it's going to bounce back to the way it was, maybe a little bit worse than the world was before. But this is kind of, I think it's a testament to the project we started even before the pandemic. Owning land and doing this kind of project is even more meaningful than it was before.
Yeah, I think that, for us, it's just, it was our vision beforehand, and I'm glad that we had that vision beforehand, because I think that if we were trying to scramble, it would have been a lot harder now. So Etienne asks 2 questions. Are the houses nearby each other? So there's only one house right now. It's this house that we're actually sitting in. So this will eventually be the communal house. So we'll answer that question. And then, are you planning to have joined buildings like a greenhouse or a barn? So you want to talk about how we're thinking about planning the homes? Because we are thinking about having them close to one another.
Yeah, so this house that we're sitting in now, it's kind of like the house that came with the property. And the way it's positioned in the land, it's kind of taken the hero spot, like the main central location.
Yeah.
It's got the best view. So we'd love to be able to share that. We don't think it's right to have one person just own that. Plus, it's also a very old house, like 30 years old. So in the beginning, I guess we'll just be roommates for a while until we figure out what we want to build ourselves.
Yeah.
And the idea is then to renovate this properly so that it's going to stand the test of time, because it is an old house. And then eventually we'll be building our homes relatively close, but with enough of its own privacy to be able to say this is its own house. Kind of much like a suburb, I guess, but just a very small suburb of just a couple homes. And we were even talking of some cool ideas. It's like, what if we merge our homes with a greenhouse? Because we both really like to have a greenhouse space. And, with a greenhouse, the challenge is heating it. So what if you put a house on both sides of the greenhouse? Would that help with some of the heating? And would that still provide enough privacy and distance for it to be 2 separate individual houses? So there's a lot of ideas kind of like that floating around.
Yeah, but we haven't really settled on anything. And as much as we wanted to really hit the ground running and planning out like the different homes and everything along those lines and renovating this, Joey already intimated this, but it has been really hard to find contractors, because there has been a giant exodus from the city, and other people who have been spending a lot of time home are doing renovations on their home. And there's just like a lack of contractors, a lack of materials, an increase in price of materials. So like it's real. Like we have had meetings, but we've been waiting for like 2 months for quotations from people. So
I don't know
tough.
if you can see the roof of this house, but it's as if It's a roof made out of gold because it's wood.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this
it's
is like
true.
the most expensive commodity right now.
Yeah.
It's like an ancient temple made of gold, but it's
yeah.
just normal
Yeah.
treated lumber. Yeah.
Exactly.
So commodity prices are through the roof, and everyone's just kind of waiting around to seeing what happens next. you know?
Yeah, and we're really grateful because we were looking at a piece of land that had no infrastructure whatsoever.
I'm gonna go all the way back there and see what the forest is like. All right, I'm at the back of the property now. Well, not really, because I think it goes on further that way. This is what you get when you look back. Could be an area for a good lake right here. Plus, whatever, some structures.
I think we're all so grateful that we ended up getting something with
Yeah.
infrastructure.
We would have been camping or just not living there.
Well, one of the first parcels of land that we looked at, you're right, had nothing on it, no infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So if we had got that, it would have been great at that time. But now it's so expensive to build anything on. I think we would have just sold it and flipped it and probably made a big profit. But
Maybe.
Yeah,
but-
maybe,
but now-
and then
but
tried
now,
to.
yeah, it's
But
not,
it's also tricky because we weren't
Ooh.
sure if you could actually develop it for multiple homes there.
Right.
yeah, that would have been such a
So-
nightmare.
Trying to sell to a developer or try to flip it,
Yeah.
I imagine the only person who would be interested in such a large piece of farmland would be a developer
Yeah.
or someone like us. But how would that
We
work?
got really lucky with this property. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
That is for sure.
There's already infrastructure, already
Yeah.
electric run to like the center.
Yeah, but not
A
too,
house.
not too much stuff to the point that we're like,
Right.
oh, we have to really take that down, or we can't use it right now, or something along those lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plus we like
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff here because we've definitely seen properties too where we're like, well, this could work if we take the whole house down and start from scratch.
Yeah.
You know, but
Which
then
doesn't
we're
make
just
sense.
buying land
Yeah,
without like
with the added expense
with
of a
the
home on
added
it.
expense of demolishing a home
Yeah.
and getting that shipped out of there. Yeah. It doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
none of us wants to deal with that. We
Doesn't
got
make
so
sense at
lucky.
all.
So the next question is from Red Bokata. I don't know if I said that right. I know it's early, but what
Bogota?
Both.
Bokata.
Okay, excuse me.
Not like Bogota, like Colombia. I know it's early, but what plans have you made long term for this land? So that was related to the other one. I imagine eventually, in whatever form you will have families, how will you pass down this treasure? And will it be like the Nature Conservancy model? And I'm in love with all the birds on the property, and please make an adorable chicken coop. I'll address the last one. We definitely want to make an adorable chicken coop. We don't have chickens yet, but that's definitely something. Joey likes ducks, and we have ponds for it, so I think we'll probably get some ducks as well, and maybe we'll have an adorable duck house. And yeah, long term, I think that we just like communal living and then opening up a piece of it to the community. It's a very abstract idea, but that's kind of what when we have like more detailed ideas on that. But I think that we just would be kind of shooting ourselves in the foot if we determined this is exactly what we're going to do without being too malleable about it.
Yeah, it's too early. We just got this place, and
Yeah.
we are still trying to figure out what we're gonna do with it exactly. And until we have that figured out, I don't think we can really think too detailed about like
Yeah.
how this community aspect comes in. But
I think the key question here for me is like, how will you pass this down? And I think that's something that we're still kind of like coming to terms with and tackling with, because we know how we've structured it between ourselves because we did it as an LLC where we're equal partners in the LLC, and we've had deep discussions about like, well, if one of us or all of us gets married and divorced and have kids, you know, how then do we bestow that upon our family members? And it goes back to the question that we had in the beginning about like surveying your land and separating it into like lease agreements, and then you could actually pass that down to your children, but whether your or your wife or husband or your partner or whomever, and they would be able to extract money from that if we actually sell it. But our goal is not to like flip the property and sell it. So I do think that it is a good question, something that I've at least thought about. I don't know about you guys, about what happens like once we're gone, because you know.
Well, we will definitely think about it because we have met a lot of older people that have a beautiful piece of land that are just at the end of it and they have no idea what to do now.
Yeah, and their
And
kids
they don't
don't
really
want to
have
take
a
it.
plan. And then either what happens is like, yeah, either all that they built all of a sudden is like now gone, or there's just no idea for how this continues through time. And I think that's something that we get to realize now, and we can take our time to think about how that will unfold, and hopefully by the time it's there, we'll have a plan for it.
Yeah, I mean, there are options now. A lot of those folks that we've met, like, put their lands into a conservation easement or conservation trust. I think that's one of many things that you could do. A lot of folks around here, like, bestow things to the universities or to the nature centers or things along those lines, and then it's opened for as like a public park, for instance. So I think once we start to develop the land and we start to see what it shapes into, we'll have a better idea of it in the future. But one of the things that I think we've all come to terms with is that when we put our earnings or our money and our investments into here, it's not something that is easily extractable. So it's not like we're putting money into a bank account or into, I don't know, Bitcoin or anything like that.
I mean, even this place, the previous owners have invested a lot more money into this place than they were able to get out of it from selling it to us. Yeah, unless you use the property in a way, which they did as a nursery, to generate more income.
Yeah.
You're not really gonna, do anything with it. So, but as far as passing it on, I think this place will always need to have some kind of caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's up to us to determine like who that caretaker could be over time.
Yeah, and I would hate to see it parceled up. That's one of the.
I don't think you could just give this to a land trust, because they're not going to know what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's going to be neglected, and then
the land might not be neglected. Well, it could be, because it's a lot to take care of. But then land trusts often don't know what to do with buildings, and this place already has a lot of buildings. And if we continue to add to that, then that would cause some complications. So it's something to really think about, and we're grateful that you actually sent that question in as well, because it gives us some food for thought. So we have Ralph Christensen next. Are you planning on projects that you had not imagined when you started all this, now that the reality has set in? Similar to what happened when you started to clear the snow on the snow clearing episode.
I've never seen that much snow.
Yeah. So what are some of the projects that kind of like cropped up? I mean, fixing and extending the deer fence. I thought like we came in with like, oh, we have a deer fence, wonderful, and it has one hole in it. But now we've like determined that we want to.
Well, we've decided that like we want to also have a part of the forest be protected.
Yeah.
So we can grow stuff in there. Plus, it will open up more space to potentially put other structures there. But other projects, there's all the time there's stuff that pops up, and now I all of a sudden have to learn about electricity, or then I have to learn about ice dams on a roof, or then you have to learn about like that invasive plant or whatever. So I think this property is also a great trigger for learning new things. So it's just gonna throw these situations at you, and then you have to figure out how to work with it, how to fix the plumbing, how to swap out a sink.
Luckily, Saunder's like a sponge, and he's like ready for all that. And you got a taste of the invasive species and removing them.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that. Like I learned first, before you have beautiful land, you have to clear all the invaders out of there.
Yeah, which when you
that
first
was a lot of work. Yeah.
When you first get on the land, you don't even know. You look at it. And
I'm gonna see them in other people's land now and be like, that is a multiflora rosa.
Yeah.
Like there's also, like
that honeysuckle is huge. Like these are terms that just entered my vocabulary this month, and then I'm just repeating them. I like see them on the side of the road.
I know.
I'm like, absolutely despise it.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like when we came and we looked at the land, you almost don't see that kind of stuff in the landscape. You're completely blind to it.
I was blind.
And now, as we take them out, you're like, whoa, wow, it really opens up the land quite a lot. So there's a lot of things that have cropped up, and I'm sure there's going to be more.
Yeah. I mean, recently our automatic gate broke, so that triggered me to like take it apart, see what's inside, try to understand what's inside. And then I realized that something had slipped out of like some other part and it was loose. So I put it back together, hoping that it would work, being on the phone with the customer support as well. And then, all of a sudden I know kind of how this gate works.
Yeah, but then it didn't start working until like
But then it
2
didn't
days.
start working
2 days
for
later.
2 days. So I'm not sure if I've actually fixed it or
Yeah.
if there was some kind of timer involved that just automatically made it work again. I don't
Yeah,
know.
there's a lot of questions that we have, so
But,
to
yeah.
be continued. Jake Dreyer and Mutant Monkey both ask, will you be doing a house tour? Will we be doing a house tour?
I think once we renovate this place, I think we should definitely do it before and after.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
if you look
yeah.
at it, it looks clean around here, but we have like clothes and like building materials and like
Everything
socks.
Not
outside
really
the
a good
frame
place
is a
for
mess.
anything. Yeah.
Everything outside the frame is a mess, like Joey said.
There's a bare wall there with what used to be a TV on it. There's a fire,
Cable sticking
what
out.
used to be a fireplace. Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed before
Yeah.
we do anything serious in here.
Yeah, so eventually we'll do a house tour. This is actually, even though this is a community house, it's actually quite a small house. It has a large kitchen, so I think that
Yeah.
it seems like the wide angle and the kitchen. Everyone's like, oh,
It's
that
a
must be
1,000
huge.
square feet per floor. It's
Yeah.
2 floors. So.
Yeah, yeah. So in American home terms, I think that's quite it's probably average, but yeah. And the downstairs is pretty dank and dark right now. So, all right. So
Especially now that I'm living down there,
in the cave,
dank and dark,
in the cave.
slithering around.
Zoli Celis Suazo says, what have been the most challenging and the most rewarding experiences so far? Honestly, I think the most challenging thing for us has just been getting contractors and people to help to move forward. I don't know, like getting quotes to me has been
Yeah.
such a challenge.
There's just a bit of a delay with everything.
Yeah. But like we wanted to kind of plan on doing things this year. And it looks like it's probably going to happen next year, I guess.
I guess that will be, I mean, all of this is so new to us that we have a very hard time kind of estimating how long things take or what it takes. Like even just removing the invasive trees.
I thought we'd have like
You know,
another 2 or 3
you
days.
thought you
But
have that done in a couple days, but then you work on it for weeks and you're like, okay.
and then you
when
see
is this
more.
gonna end?
Yeah.
And then you see more.
I
and
thought
then,
we'd
like,
finish it with you here, but then you hurt your shoulder, and it's like it's
Right.
kind of impossible to do.
For me, I had, I still have a freelancer's job as a photographer. And, I've been doing that my whole life, like more years doing that than other years being alive. So I had like some semblance of what that meant and what my income would be and like how the world works. And then from the pandemic, I hate to keep mentioning, the pandemic. Like it's boring at this point. I hate talking about the pandemic, but like it literally changed everything. And if you can imagine a freelancer's life, how it is before this, the uncertainty of work, I was getting used to that my whole life. And now, like throw a pandemic into it, there's a lot more uncertainty, even more so than a regular job, I think. So for me, what is the hardest thing, or like what changed in your mind as a question, is like going into this, I knew like what we could do, how much money I would have to allot to this per year. And then like I was in such a great financial place in 2019, and like all of that like went to shit. It just crashed, and like which is really funny. And that's just how that's things that life throw at you. But it's really hard to plan. So like you guys, I'm hearing you talk, and it's as if for someone watching this, I don't want them to think that you guys have just been sitting around going, I don't know what to do. Like you guys are calling around everybody, trying to book these things, trying to get contractors, trying to figure it out. But even with that much effort that I've seen you guys put into it, it's still hard. Like you can't physically get people here because they're so busy working on other properties. So it's not like you guys don't know what you're doing. Like give yourselves more credit than that. It's just like there's been a wrench thrown in this entire system.
Yeah.
And we're not the only people who don't know what to do right now. Nobody knows what to do right now. It's a very strange time right now. So what I'm doing is we're doing all of the long-term things that are going to benefit this project no matter what shape it actually takes. Like those are the things that we're focusing now. Anything that we can get done, let's get done. The rest is going to have to work itself out a little bit.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point, because part of the benefit of actually doing something communally is that you'll have a little bit more resilience. You have something to fall back on as well, and that's something that we, really discussed when we were here, because I was like, we're all freelancers ostensibly, so we're like, well, what happens if one of us has a really bad year? Can some of it be borrowed from the LLC? And then eventually a small interest rate charged to that person if he or she can't actually pay off certain fees and things like that. So those are a lot of safeguards that we were actually discussing amongst ourselves. And hopefully that's like part of the benefit of being in a community. And I'm sure as like some of us, struggle along the way or have maybe a bad year or years, we'll probably come up with more clever ideas, I guess, that will be helpful to the whole sum. And I think that's what like communities are about, and that's ostensibly like what we're trying to do, even though there's like only a few of us right now.
Oh yeah, like being part of this has been such just like a hopeful streak for me in all of this, because no matter like what I do, no matter what gets like taken from me or eviscerated my bank account, I still have this land, and you guys are working so hard here. So like when I'm in Ethiopia, I like feel bad because I'm like not ripping out things with my hands, but I always have that
feels good
like,
to rip out with the hands sometimes.
Absolutely. But I feel like very hopeful, right? And this is something that I think was torn out of our modern world, right? Is a sense of community. Obviously, in Ethiopia, we have a huge community, and that's a different style of living than United States. So like when I have this little hopeful blip in the back of my mind in the United States, it's really nice for me, and it's really like mentally healthy, I feel, to have your own land, your own source of food, potentially like diversified income streams of things you can do on that land. How did we forget this as people? How did we forget, like, this is the fundamentals of life? I've been so removed from local supply chains, hooked into worldwide supply chain that's so vulnerable, that just broke, So now we're like back to the basics. So this is like a positive vision in my mind, is what I wanted to say.
Very well stated.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I think, and one of the things I would say rewarding is just like building this with all of you, because to me, even when we're doing like the really hard labor and the hard work, and we've put in some really, heavy work days, I'm always like, it's for the larger vision. I think that's one of the most rewarding ones.
It's also, the work's going to suck sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's easier to do it if you have a bigger vision. And it's even easier to do it if there's other people as well helping you with it. So it's not just your own thing. This makes it easier.
Kia was asking me, like, why are you doing this work? Why are you physically pulling out stuff when you can just like easily hire someone to do it? The point is just feel the land a little bit, feel the project, as Sander was saying, like develop skills so you can do this yourself. And when you feel the land, you can become connected to it. One of the nice suggestions Sander had was like, if you have a spot in mind to build your future house, like why don't you camp there for a few days? It's such a big investment of money and time. Like you better pick the right spot. So like build a little wooden platform and put a tent there to feel it out, to feel out the land. And then you're gonna know, oh, I should take this thing like 2 meters forward, or pick another place or whatever. So when I come out here, even though it's for a short time, and I really appreciate what you guys have been doing out here, mostly led by yourselves, but you can really feel what it means to have land and like what to do with it, being physically connected to it.
All right, next one is Arun Bangera. Hey, in your previous videos, we saw a few gardens across the Finger Lakes community. And my question is, how are you planning to minimize your business competition when your future ideas overlap with existing ones in the Finger Lakes community? And I think that, are not quite entirely certain about what business ventures we're going to be doing here. I think we're learning from a lot of folks within the Finger Lakes community. It's a wonderful community, and we hope that by doing videos on other folks, it is actually supporting the Finger Lakes community as a whole. So it actually also makes me at least feel like I'm really embedded into the community a lot more. But I think that there's enough of everything for everyone here. I mean, just because if somebody sells plants or starts a farm, it doesn't mean that somebody else can't start a farm or sell plants. And I think the large draw, eventually when the pandemic is over and done with, that maybe more people will return to this area. And there's tourism was always a big thing here in the Finger Lakes, so I think that there'll be more people who want to come and visit, and hopefully some of our videos that we feature will entice people to come and actually visit some of the places that we feature. And eventually when we open up what we're doing here at Flock Finger Lakes, people want to visit us too. But in the meantime, we're just kind of like going to be busy restoring the land and doing that kind of stuff.
I think for competition, I'm not too worried about it, because even if there's more places to Airbnb or camp, there could also be more people that want to go and come and camp. Another thing is I don't think we'll be getting too much into other people's weeds, because we still have our own individual business where
I think that's
do
the main
animation and Joey does photography. And I think these are kinds of skills that are on a different plane as to what most of the community here, local businesses, are kind of into. So I think it complements each other actually very well, where we're able to use our animation skills, photography skills, video skills to even help them promote what they're doing, even help them make their business run better, so that they can expand what they're doing. I never think about it as competition.
Yeah,
anything.
I think neither do
It's just
do
more
I.
opportunity and more choice. And
Yeah, exactly.
I think that everybody and their mother that's from a city that was pushed out and bought land that had a forest or something photogenic with it has come across the idea I'll put a yurt on there and I'll rent it out on Airbnb. I'll put a teepee.
Even
there.
our neighbor Kenny was talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a great idea.
He put a tent.
You're right. It's kind of a great idea, but I can just see that whole world becoming absolutely saturated with this kind of Airbnb business.
Yeah.
And that's good. More power to everybody doing that. I'm not saying don't do that. It is a great idea, but there's going to be thousands of those that pop out outside of New York City. So for me, if you guys were interested in getting into that business, that's great. But anything that we develop on the land that makes this place special is going to directly benefit that and put us ahead of any competition. So it's we have such a long-term view that it's going to help us, right? We're not throwing up come stay in a caravan yurt on our land, because we're not interested in that at this point. But when you develop that meadow into a beautiful ecosystem, then the kind of people who could come and stay here are suddenly eco-tourists, and they have something to actually be part of. And it's a bigger vision. So it's what's lucky for us is we're not in a position where we have to rush into those businesses, and we can focus on our business now and develop this land properly. Then after there are major pillars of things to stay here and to prop up this place, then that would be a great time to open up those kind of businesses. So anytime I see what those guys are doing or what these guys are doing, I don't see it as a competition. I see it as getting the region rich is a really nice thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Because there's also, for example, Terry with his greenhouse that he just built. He offers camping on
That's
his
another
land as
episode.
well.
If you guys don't know who Terry is, it's the geothermal greenhouse episode.
And if you were into, you could go camping, but if you were into food and pizza and growing your own things, it might be better for you to go camping at where Terry is at.
Yeah, and learn from there.
And learn from what he has built there and see what he has built, and it becomes a destination to go to, rather than just any other place that you can stay.
That's right.
So next question is from Stephanie Garston. I would love to know how you're finding it so far and what the biggest surprises or challenges have been since you took over stewardship of the land. I know you went in with your eyes open, having done lots of research, but I imagine with the space that large, there are some things you could only find out once you get stuck in. Did we answer that one all before? No, I think
It's a similar question before, but
yeah, biggest surprises and challenges I think like for me, I think it still has been like contractors, and then we actually just brought in some contractors to the land to help with cutting down the trees, and we brought in mulch, and I don't know, I felt really accomplished that day when other people started to help out and chip in, and I was like, oh my God, like the day was so productive. That's what I felt like, yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's just like whatever this place is gonna throw at you, like that's what you'll have to learn about, and yeah, there's all kinds of challenges happening all the time.
Yeah, I think what I really love about our approach, and Joey also mentioned this as well, is that we're taking the long game plan, and then we're also, especially Sonder, with your vision boards and everything, putting together the overall view of the landscape. Excuse me, I just burped. But it's the celeriac that I made.
And I got it amplified in my ear too because I'm listening to your mic.
That's your fault.
Still
Better from this end.
It's uncensored.
But yeah, no, we're also taking a look at the land as a whole, and we're not doing like these tiny little projects. And
I like heard you, and I was just trying to pretend that nothing happened.
Anyway, moving on, unless you guys want to add to something.
I sure hope that answers your question.
Okay, how will you organize the tasks around the lot between each and every one of you? And Etienne asks that question. It's mostly falling on Sonder's shoulders. Because he lives here full time.
He who lives here does
The person
the
who
most.
lives here full time will take care of that.
The groundskeeper, as you said, it sneeze.
No, I think when we're here, we definitely try to contribute, and we set up work days. And sometimes we work so hard, the next day later, we're just like out. We're like, we can't do anything today. But yeah, I think that kind of the main tasks, unfortunately, settle on your shoulders when you're here.
But I think we agree upon it where, I track my hours when I do something that is kind of a communal task.
Yeah, same
That's
here.
a good point.
So there's different ways. There's tasks that you want to do because you personally want to see it done. None of the other members care about it. Okay, well then it's just your work. Then there are things that need to be done that all of us are kind of responsible for or should chip in on.
Yeah.
But
or sometimes we can't get somebody to come and do that work.
Right. So
so we have to do it anyway, and then we just put a monetary value on it.
So then, the idea is let's hire it out because then at least we can all chip in. But then if one of us takes on the task, we should place value on that still so that the other members then compensate for the work that was put in. So if I put in 3 days of work, then, and we put a value on that, you guys basically are paying me instead of, we're all outsourcing it to someone else. That makes sense.
Yeah,
so
it's better to keep it here.
Yeah, so we're kind of playing with that, and yeah, it has to work. And no matter what you do, I think there will always be some kind of imbalance of like one person's doing more than the other, depending on knowledge or whatever, and skill, but that's like even in a family, there's people in the family that do more or work harder than others sometimes, but the idea is that you are all stronger together than on your own individually, so it's worth it to put that work in. And
we'll have also discussions with one another in our meetings about like if we feel like we're putting in a lot more labor, should some of the other partners put in a little bit more money on the side. But we do have that kind of built in and baked into our operating agreement and our partnership charter together, where we will put value on our work, even though it's maybe like our work is undervalued compared to the work that we do in our own professions, but at least it has some value to it. And then that would, at the end of the year, if you work so much on the land, then that will come out in shares at the end.
A lot of the work so far, like that I have been doing, is it's kind of more like understanding versus work. Because I'm just like understanding what it takes to take the invasive species out, so that next time I see one pop up, I know to be on it, or because it's not just something that we contract out and pay for.
Exactly.
If something breaks in the house and I have to fix that myself, or I decide to fix that myself, I know to take care of it better. I know what's involved, so I'm just like understanding versus like work. And that's kind of how I look at it as well sometimes.
Etienne had a lot of great questions. He has another one that I think is very good. I guess you already established rules between all of you and a contract to avoid future disputes. That's correct. We have an operating agreement and a partnership charter. Could you share some ideas that you are proud of that could be wise for others thinking about the same kind of ownership? And actually, I got an email from 2 people who are actually thinking about doing something very similar to what we're doing, and they asked a lot of questions as well. So, I some of the things that I'm proud of is how we really took the time to sit down with one another and understand our different types of personalities and how we make decisions, and understanding like who is going to be more involved and not involved. Like we knew that Joey was going to be traveling and working and living part of the time in Ethiopia, and we knew that Sander wanted to live here and that I would be half time. So it wasn't like we were tricking ourselves or fooling ourselves that it was going to be different. I think that was really useful, and I think that speaking with a lawyer from the get-go and understanding how to actually structure this in a way, like knowing that we're going to do this as an LLC and treat it as that, actually helped us answer a lot of tough questions. Like, for instance, like how is the land going to be passed on if one of us or all of us have children, for instance. And I think some of that will still be kind of worked out as we age. But those are things that I'm kind of most proud of. I don't know what you guys feel about that.
I think it's important to explain that there's 2 separate documents, right? One is a partnership charter. That's like a more personal, goals-oriented thing. And then there's an actual like legal document that's more of a contract. And those 2 things are very different in tone, but I think they're equally important because one tracks like legal lawyer kind of stuff, and the other one is like, where are you going in your life? It's a little bit more
what are your expectations?
floaty.
Yeah, it's a little bit more touchy-feely.
Yeah, but those 2 dynamics are really important. So
and a lot of those questions you never sit down and ask yourself. Like some of those questions,
people are afraid to even think about some of the questions, like when you die, what happens? When this person dies, what happens?
Or also just like what's my biggest fears, or what do I feel like people's expectations are of me? What are my expectations for my other partners? Like it definitely is more touchy-feely, but then you really get to the heart of like what people are feeling, and I think it reduces conflict in the future. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Theoretically,
well, it does, but how much?
Yeah, we don't know yet. We're just starting. What about you? Anything?
I think that's it. That's well said.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about communication, I guess. Summer's a good curator for that, or moderator for that.
Sometimes.
And yeah.
Okay, La France. Is the house experience everything you were hoping it would be when a honeymoon period is over and you start to notice all the faults and best friends can become enemies? Somebody grab the knife over there.
That's a good question.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, I feel like are we still in the honeymoon phase? Because, we've been here for a couple weeks now, all of us kind of in the home together for the first time in a while. So I still kind of feel like we're in the honeymoon phase because you have to go back. I'm going back to New York. You'll be here. So it's not like we're all on top of one another. We're not all roommates living in one house all the time.
We don't necessarily have our own spaces quite yet. Although if we need to, we could figure it out.
Yeah.
In some ways, maybe I hate to flip this question on them, but in some ways, this phase now I think is harder than when everyone has their own house, because we're all sharing one house and trying to figure out how to develop it. So yeah, maybe the honeymoon phase was over when like we lost the first property that like we shouldn't have been building on.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing what it takes to develop even something that already has a house and structure on it. But I think everyone's going to get their own. First of all, not everyone lives here full time, except, and when we build separate houses, then that'll become real. But it'll never be us living on top of one another.
Yeah.
Like that's not how it's set up.
Yeah, or at least we hope not. But it
Yeah.
really depends on like, you know, how long it will actually take to build our own homes and everything. But for right now, it's like a nice slow jog.
Yeah, it'll be
so
like
it hasn't been much issues.
who takes over the collective spaces and taking care of them when you do have your own private space.
Yeah.
That'll be when the so-called honeymoon phase is over, right? Like who takes care of the places that you don't actually live in,
Yeah.
right? Then that's when we're gonna have to divide it up and see what works best for everyone who's actually living here.
Right. That it's more like treating it. So far, I'm kind of comparing it to, you know, sometimes you do a project for even a photo shoot or an animation project where you travel to a destination and you work together with a team over there for a couple weeks,
Right.
and then you disperse again. That's kind of what it feels like right now still to me. So whenever we're like together here, we're kind of working on this project together, and then we separate again, and then yeah.
And it's good then because I think we give each other space as well. So we're not like totally in each other's hair, which I think is really helpful. And I think that's one of the things we all recognize is that we need space from one another as well.
And we're really lucky to even have that, because a lot of the times when someone acquires a property like this, they don't have their other house, right? And they don't have another place to even think about living. So they would have to, you know, either build right away or just move in everything. And that's one of the luxuries that we have. We don't have that problem. We have another place, another home somewhere else.
Yeah.
So this is like our little nature kingdom that we can come in and come out of sometimes for now.
For now.
And that will go away when
it eventually becomes like
that's
our,
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, our forever
exactly.
home.
Exactly.
And then Stephanie asks, did your dad join the flock? Well, not really at this stage. We're still in discussion with it, and we're still kind of feeling it out. I think part of the complication is that, one, we can't get contractors and
Can't build
renovators.
anything,
Can't
so.
build anything. But then also, like, we chatted with the lawyer and how it would actually work. So my dad would never come in if he did eventually choose, or we chose for him to come be a part of it. He would never. We would never have to change our operating agreement. In fact, what we thought would be a good idea when we were speaking with our lawyer is something that would be considered an inter vivos investment, that was the first time that we had heard of that term. But basically, it's his investment, if he did come into the land, would be equivalent to my investment. You know, I wouldn't have to wait for my father to pass to, you know, have that bestowed upon me, so that my relationship with my father would be one that if he had a plot of land that was surveyed on this overall land, it would eventually become part of compound, but it would be considered part of my investment. Mm-hmm. So that's how we'd structure that, and I just wanted to say that because that actually might be interesting for people who are thinking about inviting somebody else onto their land. But my dad would have never been or would be a partner affecting the operating agreement, so it'd still be the three of us.
And that's specific to family, right? It doesn't really work with any other person.
I don't
or
know,
I guess you
actually.
could do that.
I don't know.
It all depends.
I think an inter vivos investment is an inter vivos investment, whether it's family or not. But yeah, I think like my dad really wants the best for us, and
he still comes and visits.
Yeah, and we want the best for ourselves as well, and for my father. So we're just kind of like in discussion. My dad is not like cruising to move here right away. It's just something that he enjoys coming up here and everything like that, and we just want to make sure that it's right for everyone when the time is right.
Yes.
I don't know. You guys have anything else to offer in that? No? Okay.
I mean, the land's big enough, so it
Yeah.
just depends on what the terms are.
Yeah.
We have enough space.
So this is from the last live stream that we never got. I can't remember who asked the question, but I think it's an important one. How will partners and significant others fit into the flock? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
Sure, yeah. I think I always saw this as a very future project, like 5-year, 10-year time horizon, let's say 5 years. And when I bring my family here at that time, like that's the point where I'll have a house built here and they'll have to contribute equally to the project. And I've already like talked about it. Everybody's on board. So when that time comes, we'll have to enter it together and know that there's certain tasks that benefit like all the common areas and certain things that benefit the more private areas like our own homes.
Yeah.
So one of the things in the partnership charter is like, what do you do about like kids running around, like that kind of thing? And we've already talked about that amongst ourselves. We know which one of our members want to have kids, what members don't care about that. So I think if you're living on land, you have to be careful with following the rules of the other members.
Yeah. And I think like anybody who has a partner, I mean, we want to invite them onto the land. I mean, obviously, that's part of what the community is all about. Mm-hmm. We will always still be partners in the business. So it doesn't necessarily mean that just because Sandra has a partner, Joey has a partner, I have a partner, that they all of a sudden become a partner in the business
Right.
with decision making. Obviously, if you have a partner, you could be making decisions with them, but executably, you're the only one who's going to be making the decisions and has the shares in that.
Voting.
And the voting, the voting rights, essentially.
Right, but what I'm trying to describe too is that we all have partners that like understand this,
Mm-hmm.
and like the communication has been very clear from the beginning, like what this is and what they're getting involved with. It's not like I'm marrying some like normie that wants like a house and nobody else like around surrounded by a fence or something. You know what I mean? Like they've been like they know what this is,
Yeah.
and what that means and what the benefits are.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm trying to say in a nice way.
Yeah. So the next one is Gerald. This is kind of more on the greenhouse stuff. Gerald Bali TV. Do you plan to construct a greenhouse? How big is it? And what plants do you plan to plant there?
Oh, I'll handle this question. I got this one. No, just kidding. That's the summer question.
I think we're all like our greenhouse ideas kind of moved from we had like important stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, and I think it got bumped to stage 2. Perhaps because the gazebo and the vegetable beds are more important than doing a greenhouse. But we'll have to see. These things like fluctuate all the time. But yes, we have a greenhouse idea planned and plotted out. Sandra actually went and built this like kind of structure out of some of the old raised beds that we took down so that we could see what size of greenhouse and where it could fit into the landscape. And that was super helpful because, can you tell everyone what we determined?
Yeah, so before you build anything, it's a big decision. So you might as well take some old planks, and we had some old planks because we took those garden beds down, and just start building the structure, at least the size of it, so that you kind of get familiar with like where it's placed in the land, and what it actually will look like, and how big it will feel. Like, is it easy to walk to? So, for example, we first had the idea, and I felt very strong about it, to place the greenhouse somewhere near one of the ponds. And then we built the structure, and then we just couldn't get it to look like this thing was like facing the pond properly. It would always kind of look like it was like
Off
facing
center
away
somewhere.
or off center.
Yeah, it'd be like this. If we were all like just talking like this at the camera. That's how it felt like.
you walk to place A and it looks right. You walk to place B and it looks off. And then you you twist it and then place B looks right, but then place A looks off.
And then plus it wasn't facing south.
Then we realized that
Yeah.
once it started to look somewhat decent, it didn't face the proper way. So
Yeah.
like, why are you investing all this money into a greenhouse that's gonna only work halfway? So then we kind of just like that process helped us figure out where it should go in the landscape, and eventually we figured out what if we place it closer to the road, because they're beautiful. Like the greenhouse is beautiful from a couple of perspectives as well. The back of the greenhouse, the north side of it, will mainly be a wall.
Yeah,
So
stone or brick or depending on
another
what it
benefit
is.
of having it where it is now is that we will, most of the time, by moving around on the property, we will see the most beautiful side of this greenhouse
Yeah.
versus the back of it, which was, if you place it on the other side of the road and you're always going to be near the road, you'll always be looking to the back of this building. So, yeah.
And then we also
we
determined
learned
after
a lot.
this really big snowstorm that it was sensible to actually put it nearer to the road, because if we're going to be using it, which we probably are, then we want to be in a place that is easily plowable. Where we had it before was really not feasible. It would be fine probably 3 seasons out of the year, but not really in the winter. But to answer your question, I think that it's probably going to be 30-ish feet, maybe a little less than that, long, maybe, I think it was like 14 or 15 feet.
Yeah, 14 by 28.
28, okay.
And then, but that can even still change.
Yeah.
Because like, as I'm
don't know.
continuing to build this rough frame, I might realize that, it's too small. Because we can plan on putting a table in there, see if that fits, put some fake chairs like in
Yeah.
it, and see if there's enough space to kind of walk behind each other.
Yeah, we kind of measured
It's
it
like-
roughly where we're like, all right, well, how big should the growing beds be? We also want to have space for a very long table and chairs so that we could turn it into a place where people could dine, or we could dine at night in the greenhouse. We think that would be really lovely. Our idea is kind of having a little bit more of a throw to the Victorian style greenhouses. And because this one won't be attached to any other building, we decided that we'd probably do it more as a succulent and cacti greenhouse, because those could withstand a bit more of colder temperatures. So most of the time you'll want to keep it around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius for my Celsius brothers here. And you won't have to incur so much heating bills, because if it was a tropical greenhouse, then we would be having to heat it at 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's a lot more cost. And if the idea that Sandra had mentioned before, where maybe we have 2 homes and it's connected by this greenhouse, that would be something that I could see more tropical plants growing in, because you
Yeah.
have more buffer there.
And it might be a tool for heating our own houses too, because
Exactly.
in the summer or even in the winter, a greenhouse will reach a high temperature, and that could potentially be hot air that could be pushed into the homes that are colder. But in the winter, it might be the other way around, where the homes are warmer, and then they can help warm the greenhouse. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll have to see. And I think that, as we reach out to more contractors and build relationships with contractors, these are some of the answers that could be revealed by some of their work as well. And then learning from people like Terry in his greenhouse and things
yeah.
like that. So, and then that brings me to Mila's greenhouse. She asks, will you be growing any ornamental tropical plants in the greenhouse? And I, think that, again, it's probably going to be more succulents and cacti in the beginning. And then Cap and Home says, are you planning to build a greenhouse for tropical plants? Which is the same. If yes, is the idea to sell them or simply open it to the local community to visit? I haven't really thought about this had been a nursery. I haven't really thought about actually doing that, but I think it's just natural. We've kind of met a lot of folks here and filmed a lot of folks here that didn't have plans of selling plants, and then they just started to do it because they had extra plants that they started to propagate. So I think that could be feasible. And I think also what's really feasible is that we do have a desire to open this up to the community. And actually, we've already started to open it up to some of the folks who have helped us on the land to, come and enjoy it. And I think that really, brings us pleasure that other people are here and enjoying it. So, inviting people from the community to visit, I think, is definitely something that we'll end up doing in the near future once everything gets set up and running. Okay, there's a few animal questions. Gerald asks, what are the livestock you plan to raise? I don't know if we're planning on doing livestock, but chickens, ducks. I was looking at goats today. Sandra caught me looking at the different types of goats.
That'd be really, really cool, yeah.
Baby goats.
Baby goats.
Maybe bees.
Maybe
Or
bees.
livestock,
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's livestock, but yeah, maybe bees. I don't think cows or horses or anything. It's a little bit too much. But I grew up raising chickens and goats and stuff like that, so I kind of like the idea of those.
Yeah,
and a goat
animals
could be
that are
handy.
manageable.
A goat could be
that-
handy. Get that multiflora rose out.
Oh
We can
yeah, they
stick
eat
the
those
goat on the
spiky plants. It's
multiflora rose.
unreal. Yeah, but anything
yeah.
that's manageable. I guess when you have a bunch of cattle, all of a sudden it takes a whole day job to take care of that, right?
Yeah, and-
that becomes kind of counter.
Again, I think the land
Productive.
can't really, for us, it wouldn't be able to support a head of cattle
Right,
either.
that's true.
It's very, very challenging. Spiritual imprints. I'm curious if you're going to be incorporating chickens into a permaculture way on the land to build new gardens. Kippy would be so proud. I think Kippy would be so jealous.
It's more jealous.
She was a jealous hen. Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I think that we'll be incorporating chickens in a permaculture way, and also a very spoiled way, because I spoil my chickens rotten.
And chicken is nice to control any potential tick population
Ticks,
also.
yeah, guinea
Once
hens
the
are
deer
better.
fence
But,
is there,
yeah.
plus chicken, it's going to be really nice.
yeah, exactly. And I already found a tick on me when I was outside gardening, so that's something that we do have to be concerned about.
Yeah.
Jelena Mazet says, what kind of native animals, bugs, and plants do you have on the property? I mean,
Where do we get started?
we see a new bird species every day, basically. And you got the binoculars.
Fox, yeah, a raccoon,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we recently
Bear.
purchased a night.
Groundhog.
groundhog.
Yeah, we purchased the night camera, so the trail camera,
Yeah.
so you can see.
We
What animals
definitely
visit?
saw something that I could not identify. It was like a chipmunk and a weasel put together.
Maybe a groundhog.
Yeah, it had a weird
No, it
tail.
was tiny. It had a weird flat tail, but it wasn't I don't know. It was weird. It was a little blurry. Birds, I mean, you just have to go to the Flock Finger Lakes Instagram. I try to post all the new birds that we see all the time. We have a hooded merganser female that I saw coming out of one of your nest boxes that you made.
Yeah, I guess they're using a nest box, huh?
Yeah, so there's a lot, and what we hope to do by restoring the area and doing enrichment planting in the woods, that it will actually bring more wildlife and insects back.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
fingers crossed. So next one. These are kind of gardening and then ideas. So are you planning any water projects on the land or wetland plantings? You want to talk about water projects? About because we have a lot of water on the land.
Yeah.
But what are you planning?
I mean, so I don't know if he means by water projects about plantings or stuff.
Like
Just
aquaponics,
managing
maybe?
the water on the property?
Maybe, or collecting water, perhaps. But and that's from Alocasia Mania. I mean, basically, what was interesting about the nursery is that they created this. This whole land is basically like an irrigation,
It's like a water collection system.
a water collection system.
Because he needed a lot of
Yeah.
water to water all the plants on the nursery.
Right.
And he also didn't want to have the soil be soaked with water, so he had a good drainage.
Because it's really wet up
Yeah.
here. So, so basically, he constructed 4 ponds, 1 on top, 3 on the bottom, and put in tile drainage, which is I never knew really what tile drainage was. When you think of tile drainage, I was thinking tiles, but it's just these pipes that basically collect and direct water down to the different ponds and helps drain the land. And hopefully we're not going to, when we restore that land and turn it into meadow, hopefully we don't take up all the tile drainage and we don't ruin that system, because it is kind of an interesting water collection system. But what happens is that you get this dry mesic area, and then you get these wet pockets, usually around the ponds. And Joey and I went out and we did some planting of like elderberry and some iris and some liatris and some like wet meadow plantings around the pond. So I think that we're going to be doing that. We have an idea. There's like a little boggy area out to the left of the pond that we would like to include in our plans, but it's probably going to be too much of an expense to right now to extend the deer fence outside of that. So we'll probably just leave that for
Yeah, one
another
thing
year.
at a time. Don't have to do all the.
And we're really trying to lean into some of the positive things that were already built here instead of going against everything that's there. So you had mentioned the tile drainage.
Yeah.
I guess that was created to not have customers like sloshing around in the mud, right? Down there. Well, for us, that's really good. We don't have to fight it. We don't have to tear it all up. Your idea of a different kind of meadow goes along with that. And we can just plant into it rather than trying to just do whatever random vision we have on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it would probably be too costly if we wanted to, completely, overhaul that. So yeah, lean into already what's here.
Yeah, my idea of making a moat with crocodiles in it is just too expensive. It's just too expensive
And a drawbridge.
around the house.
And plus the crocodiles would eat all of our bass.
I wasn't thinking, guys. I'm sorry.
All right, so Jay Say says, are you planning on sharing advice on native plantings, like what you'd replace some invasive shrubs with? And obviously it would only apply to your region, but it's a region that I plant in too. Yes, I'd love to actually talk more about native plants. And I have to tell you that I'm just kind of sometimes I have to wipe the cobwebs away because sometimes I even forget what I'm looking at. It's just been so long. But I find myself getting really interested in it. And I think it will be featuring more of that also on the channel as well. Mutant Monkey says, what plants and how many will you eventually move, and will you document your moving? Yeah, probably. But I think I'll probably move plants slowly. I mean, some of the plants that we have here are my plants, and they've started to proliferate. You have one plant at your house. Saunders' plants made it over here already. But yeah, we'll probably do a couple big hauls, but it'll be over time. So it probably won't be as dramatic as people think it might be. And then Ashley Duza says, how is the development of the garden going, and what new things are you guys planning to do? So in October and November, I think we took down those raised beds.
Yeah, right before the snow came.
Yeah.
And now we've planted some new gardens over there, right?
Well, yeah, to Joey's point, actually, we are leaning into kind of what's already here, and there's been some really interesting plantings. The gentleman before us really loved his conifers and some Acer palmatums, which are really beautiful Japanese maples. And so we're kind of weeding out some of those beds, pruning the trees, and doing some additional plantings. We've taken out some of the invasive plants that were very in vogue back in the day, like barberry, but we're actually started to find it all around. Joey took one of the barberries up the other day. It was pretty easy though for you to get out. It's not like one of those. Yeah, it was small, so I think we're catching them at a good time. But like I said, our greenhouse kind of got kicked to stage 2, and stage 1 might actually be the gazebo and some raised planting beds, but that will come after the deer fence, because we can't really. It doesn't make sense to do much planting until the deer are excluded off the land.
Yep.
And then any more plans for episodes similar to the Wild Garden Tour? It was a great episode. That was with Wayne. And I think we've gotten a lot of requests to go back to Wayne's place. I wish you got to see it.
There's a lot more to do there at Wayne's
There's
place.
so much to do at Wayne's place.
He's got tons of things to talk about and see.
I hope we have a place like Wayne one day.
We kind of need to, because he has a lot of old carpentry tools and a lot of blacksmith tools. We kind of need someone with a profession in that area
to go experience
visit. And then we have the contrast of the old and the new. So we just need to find someone who works with those tools on a daily basis. And then, we'd love to go back there. We'll have to see.
So juniper berry, sorry, I'm you having to sit through some of these plant questions, but we're almost out of it. We're almost out of the weeds. Juniper Berry says, I'd love to know more about the food forest and in particular information about the pawpaw trees. Some are mentioned, variety, planting, supplier, how long to bear fruit, everything about them. Well, we'll have to just do an episode on pawpaws in the future, but our neighbor came over and brought us ramps. I didn't see any ramps in our which are like these like nice wild onions. And yeah. And like my idea was to do pawpaws and ramps and some other edibles in the forest. And so we went and planted some of the allium and stuff like that.
Pawpaws are special because they're the kind of fruit-bearing tree that can survive in this climate, right?
Yes, so that they're kind of like the tropical fruit of the north.
Yeah.
And it depending on what kind of variety you get, they all taste slightly different. They could taste like a lot of people describe them between like mango and banana and papaya, all kind of wrapped up into one. But they're not shelf stable, so it's part of the reason why you don't find them in stores or anything along those lines. So it's something that you really need to grow. And there's like pawpaw festivals. People are really into their pawpaws. A lot of the permaculturists here actually grow their own pawpaws. They do get a large taproot. So oftentimes, the ones that people grow, it's almost better to get the small ones, because if you get like the big ones that are already in a container, they're going to be like probably circling around the container and they don't have that large taproot. So but there's places that sell like specific varieties, and you need 2 or more to cross pollinate, and it's almost like better to have like 50 of them.
Yeah.
So that they could cross pollinate better.
And the ramps are a really interesting idea because first of all, they look beautiful, kind of spread it like carpeted across the ground. And then you find out how many people are like into ramps and have ramp festivals.
Yeah.
And it's like a certain time of the year. So that one's really special. And
Yeah.
they're kind of endangered too, right? Or not endangered, but
they're
rare.
being over-harvested.
Over-harvested, yeah.
Because they are so like,
I think that's special to have on the
fancy.
property,
Yeah.
ramps. And then the other thing is mushrooms.
oh yes, we got to do that. We have to
So
actually
we're gonna
go out there.
we're gonna start some mushroom projects here. That's something that I'm very excited about. You can grow shiitakes on wood, like wood-loving species. But we're gonna try another species on wood chips because it's a little bit easier.
Yeah,
so
Stropharia.
we're just beginning with that. But I mean, I love mushrooms, and
Joey's been cooking us mushrooms every single day. And they've been very good.
Yeah, well, I want to grow my own, and that's kind of a agroforestry project that I understand that I can get excited about because I'm really into it. But we'll start simple because what I learned was with shiitakes, you really have to, you can't just leave it. You really have to be involved with it. And I think if we started the shiitake project, I would really have to be living here.
Yeah.
To let the mycelium spread across the logs, make sure they're wet.
Wading the wood into the pond.
Yeah, so it's easy, but you really have to live here. And there's other kind of mushrooms that are just you can just set it and forget it. Yeah. So
Stropharia.
we're gonna try the Stropharia and see how it goes.
Yep. And then so we'll do more on that as we develop it, but hopefully that gives you a little taste for what we're doing now.
Yeah, I do really love the idea that one day on the land, fast forward 5 years into the future, we have ponds that are full of fish. We have mushrooms, we have pawpaws, we have
I'd love to actually,
ramps.
Yeah.
We have sweet potatoes growing.
Yeah.
It's in a cataclysmic event, you can still live here for quite some time, even off that. And that's not how we plan to do it. We're not trying to only eat what we grow. In today's world, that's really, really difficult. But there is something nice about that you do have the land to fall back on, and there is something nice about eating or cooking your own mushroom that you grew.
Yeah, just being able to go outside of your door and pick your fresh herbs, pick your mushrooms. There is definitely something great about it.
Right.
And
I'm into that.
we have to go to town to go to the stores, and sometimes that could be an inconvenience. We're kind of running out of food right now.
Yeah, we're running out of food now.
We might have to go tonight.
Yeah, that's true. I should get a spear and go to the pond.
I know,
exactly.
I made a celeriac mash, and it doesn't look that luxurious, but it did taste good. But it kind of looked like the end of our rope food.
When you guys have pet chickens, you might notice one went missing.
No way, man. No way.
And then I'm like, oh.
Wendy Ng says, will there be plants of all different seasons? The answer to that question is yes. The plants continue on with the season. And actually, one of the interesting things is that when this was a nursery, the gentleman who ran the nursery actually sold a lot of the winter garden plants, which are conifers, winter garden plants, to Cornell University for their winter garden. And he was really into conifers, and we have a lot of interesting conifers here. I'm just starting to get into them because I need and I want to know, and I'm curious about the things that are on this land that aren't actually not native here. And so I'm learning a lot. Like, this land is giving me an opportunity to learn, and I'm just leaning into it and loving it. Same way with you, Sonder. Like, you're like, oh my God, this is broken. Let me lean into it and like learn about it. So yes, there'll be plants in all seasons, and we hope to now be in a position where we could support the plants better here, because I think that over the last couple of years before we got onto this land, they were letting it go a little bit, and we had just gotten here at late fall, early winter, and we couldn't get wood mulch to protect some of the plants. It was a really long and hard winter for some of the plants, so we actually had a lot of die-off, and we had a lot of deer browse. So we had to remove, all of us are basically removing some of the dead or dying plants here just this past week. So hopefully we'll get it into better shape.
Oh yeah, it clears up space for new ideas and new projects.
Yeah. Speaking that,
but it's nice to have some bigger plants established already.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
it's
Like
not
some of
just all-
these, some of these plants are like 30 plus years old, like that are in the landscape, and you have to wait 30 years for it to get that large.
And also
Yeah.
like different timings. Like I think a lot of the trees here, like
Leaf
they
out.
each have their own timing as far as when they bloom, when the leaves come out.
Yeah,
Like, so
it's not all
really
at
cool.
once. Which is cool.
Yeah.
You know, we noticed that the oaks hold their leaves for a longer time, and they leaf out at a later time, whereas the maples like started to put out their leaves like really early. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see the change, because we haven't been here for all seasons yet. All right, these are some ideas from people. Tropical Fanatic says, you have settled in and seen the vast bird life and diversity of the region. Are you planning to open up the property to research projects? Any Cornell collaborations, involvement in bird conservation, wetland studies? It would be nice to get a glimpse of field projects from your alma mater. Man, I
That'd be
agree.
awesome. That would be
Yeah,
great.
I mean
Yeah.
that's what I think is so great about this place. Like we want to turn it into something that really supports these kinds of ideas. And having a huge meadow, I'm sure birds are gonna love that. And
Yeah.
then you can study them
So,
by being here.
What I've learned is actually that this place did have a collaboration with Cornell University to begin
true.
with the landscape architecture school. And so I actually reached out to the woman who ran that course, and I let her know that we are taking this on, and was wondering if she would like to continue forward to do some research projects with her students here. Of course, it was like during the time of the pandemic, so she was very interested, post-pandemic, to be doing that. And we've been calling around to some of my old professors and other connections at Cornell, and learning from them about the research projects that they're doing elsewhere, and seeing, for instance, regeneration that happens once you do install a deer fence.
Yeah.
So it's kind of silly not to pay attention to what the people within the region are doing, because we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to learn from folks in order to be able to apply, the best opportunities for this land as well. And I think we're all open to having people come here and do research projects as well.
Plus, it would be silly to develop this land into something amazing and then just lock it up.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
want to be able to share it and have other people learn from it, learn ourselves. So
Yeah, and then so if you are in the region, or even if you're not in the region, you could take and learn from that as well. So hopefully, as we grow, you grow with us. All right, Wendy Ng says, looking at the magnitude and size of your flock, would you consider a staycation for people who love gardening? You could even conduct workshops or even a soil to breakfast event. I mean, love it. Love that idea. Workshops, any workshops, like if you decide to do photography or whatever, creative workshops,
Yeah.
not just gardening, but yeah, gardening I think could be a big part of it.
I think if this place becomes developed the way that we envision it, it will be a fantastic place for ecotourism. That's not just someone coming here to sleep in a tent like what we were talking about before. If they
Yeah.
want the full experience, and I'm talking 5 years into the future, that's kind of how I see inviting guests or workshops and those kind of things here.
Yeah.
Not just like to scope out what the owners did before we were here, but to see the development of all these more unique projects that we're doing.
And then the final one, allocation mania. Are you guys going to try to live as self-sufficiently as possible? And if so, what are some of your ideas? I said this in the beginning, but I think that we love some of those principles for sure, but we're probably not going to do it all. I think that would be nonsensical because we like going to the restaurants and going shopping and like,
What would be a really cool challenge in the future would be just to see how long we can go without any grocery shopping.
Yeah,
like,
for
wouldn't that
sure.
be a great video?
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
to just start and then
People
see.
have definitely done that, but yes, that would be
Oh, have
great.
they done that?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right, well, we could do it here.
You'd be so hungry.
I know. And like, I would be trying to like grow a coffee
better
tree.
grow
Like,
your
please
mushrooms."
come, please.
Oh my god,
Coffee,
you
please.
without your
No.
coffee would be like,
Yeah, I would
oh my
cheat.
god,
I
you'd
would-
be
I
Better
would
start
cheat.
growing those mushrooms. Man.
I
When
would
you
cheat.
start that video.
You would see me just out there with a fishing rod looking miserable. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, no, we do want to actually do that, and we're looking into, this house has propane. We're interested in like looking at alternative energy sources, and I think that this place is set up to be pretty self-sufficient. But I think that there's a lot to do to get there first, if that makes any sense, because we do have to kind of think about like renovation and this house, like Sandra said, is 30 years old. We need to get this up to snuff. We're working with pre-existing infrastructure. So we want it to be around and forever. So that's for us is like how we think also about of sustainability, like doing things that will last and that are meaningful to people in the future. And then as self-sufficiently as possible, I think we will be in a situation eventually where we are growing a lot of our own food, but all of us have to, I think, be here and be contributing to that. So I think it'll take a little while for us to get there, but we're comfortable. This is our life project. So we're comfortable saying that we don't all have to run at once and throw all of our ideas off the wall all at the same time. But those are your questions, and they were all so great, and they gave us a lot of food for thought. So thank you, and I hope that helps elucidate, our thinking process behind what we're doing here at Flock. All right, guys, bye.